Why did you pick options instead of small caps? Because I know some people start off with small caps and then they figure out like large caps and options, and then they're like, okay, let me shift away from small caps. Like, why options?
I wanted to essentially make quick money. I wanted to make quick money with the least amount of exposure in the market. Picking small caps and buying and holding them, a lot of these are pump and dumps at times, not all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, right? Whereas in options, I see, like I said, the $1 to $3 to $5 movements in the market, depending on what the stock is during that time. It could be for me during that time. So I looked at what's gonna be able to give me money and money quickly, where it's gonna lessen my exposure to the market, where I don't have to have my cash on the line and be exposed in the market for too long, and I can sit on cash. Options was the move for me.
That's smart. I'm so happy. I also avoided the whole small cap world because it's just like there's a lot of due diligence that you have to do, and timing matters too because it could get halted. There's just a lot of emotional drama that goes on in the small cap world, and if
Yeah.
you're not part of the pump, just stay out of it.
Yeah, exactly. That for me, it's those penny stocks, right? It is kind of what you're referring to when you say small
Yeah,
caps.
yeah, the penny ones.
Yeah, so yeah, that's what I'm referring to as well when you say small caps is the penny stocks, and
Yeah.
like I said, it's that pump and dump, and you can a lot of people do they make a lot of money on there? Yeah, absolutely. I've seen people make a good amount of money on there, but for me, like a yacht or something like that, I don't want to have to speculate or anything like that. I just want the sure
Right.
movements in the market. And if I can read the tape and I can see that supply and demand that's potentially coming in or going out or whatever the case may be, I rely on that. Real time data to me doesn't lie, right? So I rely
Yeah.
on that.
Same. Okay. So what do you think you did differently from like the rest of us that started okay in 2019? Like what do you think you did differently that made you stand out and grow your account so fast? Because there are a lot of people that started out in 2020 and they've had so much success. But just speaking to you, I'm just curious to know what you did differently because I know a lot of traders that are still struggling, still
Right.
envy you, and I see those comments like, "What do you know? You're young. You're this."
Yeah.
But how are you different from those guys?
I explored. I tried to figure out what strategy was best for me. I think a lot of people will just go based off of one person's bias of what the best way of trading is. If you've been on my spaces before, I literally, I tell people all the time as much as I can to go explore. Figure out what your style is. Figure out how you like to trade. There is no bad way of trading, right?
Mm-hmm.
It whatever is working for you and whatever you have. Number one, the time commitment is understandable, right? Some
Mm-hmm.
people enjoy swing trading more. Some people like leaps. So a lot of other people are they straddle their positions, or let's just say that they jump in and they say, oh well, I'd rather do credit spread, debit spread, stuff like that. To you, it's like during that time. So that, without persuasion, without bias, I wasn't figured out what was best for me. And I figured out the pros and the cons, right? What it was providing me with and what it wasn't. And then once I figured out helping for me, I constantly continued learning it. I never stopped. I still consider myself a student. I still consider myself as somebody who is learning something new every single day. But the main thing of what I was saying was essentially for me to sit there and, diversify my mind, keep an open mind to, different types of trading styles and everything like that, and understand that be able to pick one as long as I stick to that. I have a plan every single time, apply my risk management. That's really what's going to take me there. One of the analogies that I actually use is I use this analogy and I always talk about the casino, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say I own a casino, okay? I own the casino and you come
Right.
into the casino as a player and you go to the blackjack table and you take my casino for 2 million, okay? You take it for 2 million.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, the casino is gonna come and say, all right, well, let me go ahead and, send up a bottle to your room. Let me set you up in like a penthouse or whatever you want, give you everything that you want, free dinner, free everything, because I say as a player, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
by doing so, I'm hoping that you're gonna come back to the table. You're not gonna be able to resist, you're gonna come back to the table. But what does the
For sure.
casino do? They don't change their rules on blackjack, right? I'm not gonna sit there and change my entire rules on blackjack because you took me for 2 million. Because I know that after I hook you up with a couple of freebies and everything like that, naturally you're gonna come back and this time change your rules during that time. And the second that you come in
Mm-hmm.
and you change your rules at that blackjack table, you're essentially going to give me on top of that, right? So they
Yeah.
say the house always wins. Why does the house always win? The house always wins because they don't change their rules. But the player, they don't always win because they're going to come back and maybe be, big-headed or have an ego or feel like they're invincible on top of the world and come back in and change up, bet more than they should. Like, I think of the market and I think of going into the market and why these rules and these things work for me. I think of it like that. I think of it as being the casino. If the house always wins, I want to be the freaking house every single time.
That's a good analogy, actually. It makes so much sense. Because most people come into the markets like a little bit skeptical, but not so guarded that they're like, oh, okay. Like their mind is free. You're not worried about the money. You're just doing it. And it starts to work. And then you think, okay, this is great. It's not that hard. And then you let your guard down.
Yeah.
And that's when they get you.
Hell yeah.
And that's
yeah,
when they
that's
get you. Yeah.
humbles you a lot. It's your real money that it's a tough game, but I also think of it as like, a boxer going into a boxing match. You're going to take hits, right? But what are you going for? You're going for the KO every single time. Whatever you could do during that time to win, right? And my losses, I like to post my losses because people, think that, well, you're just always 10K loss, 20K loss, or whatever, even a 50K loss. I understand that, but I know that I'm going to come back, and if I could do that every single time, I'll always make those losses back. I always say that, small losses only set you up for bigger gains. And if, you have these like couple of things like in your mind during that time, speed bump in your journey of trading.
That makes sense. Yeah. So I just wanted to know, like, when you grow your account, you start from 3K, go to 15, and then you're at 6 figures. Is there like a shift in how you think about losses when you see like a 7K loss or a 10K loss, knowing that that's a big amount to some people? But to you, like, how do you look at those losses when, okay, you end the day maybe 7K red? Do you kind of look back at where you came from and kind of gauge, okay, perspective, like look at where I'm at versus this loss,
Well, as you grow, right? Like as I grew from the 4 digits, up to now the 7-digit account, the losses were obviously they're going to be, a lot bigger as a 7-figure mark.
Mm-hmm.
But, when you have the capital that's there for you to potentially make it up, that's when I don't stress about it. When you don't have the capital to make it up, those losses are going to hurt you a lot more. Right. But I know for a fact that if tomorrow I took a 10K loss or whatever, I know that I have plenty of capital in order to potentially make that back. I have capital to be able to put forward in the market and be able to make it back. But as I used to have like the $150 profit days, $80 here, $150 here, sometimes $50 here, $40. I remember that. And, it was my first 1K day was like, it was incredible. I still remember that feeling during that time. But I remember how much that 1K meant to me during that time, Now I don't really sleep without making, my typical like average in the market is anyway, like the average, right? But, when you reflect on your losses, you gotta see it in one way. And I always see it as first you learn, then you take away the L, right? The L is that loss too, right? And as soon as you take away that L, then that word becomes earn. That's when you start making money. But this game is about consistency. Everyone wants quick money in the market, but I always think of the market as, and your journey as, when you have that long vision, you keep your eye on the prize, you stick again to your rules. I preach that the most. You will be highly successful every single time.